Welcome to Swell Session Episode 18, presented by the Well Studio, a community committed to encouraging the dreamer, the doer, and the entrepreneur. I'm your host, Jen Sprinkle. Today's candid conversation is with Missy Williams, the founder of Seed Effect, an organization committed to issuing seed loans to struggling entrepreneurs in South Sudan, Africa, while empowering them to invest in their own businesses. In this latest podcast, we talk about feeling overwhelmed with all the needs in the world and their specific decision to serve a country that is still in conflict. We also chat about struggles many of us have, getting our message to the masses in a noisy world and embracing the power of small. How are you doing?
I'm good. I was working on getting an email out to our mailing list about Independence Day. So, in South Sudan.
Yeah, I was reading that this morning. I was like, oh, I need to send that out to all my, it was a good.
Yeah.
That was a good.
Yeah, that's what it's funny. Drew and I talked about it yesterday, and we were like, oh, how do we reconcile this, like, war, but independence? And this morning, the staff sent that, and we were like, perfect. That's exactly what I'll send.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, so I was like, well, that's problem solved. So I was just working on that.
Missy and her team reached out to me a few months ago and invited me to join them on a trip to South Sudan to work with their clients. So I'm so excited and so honored to be joining you guys in August. And
we're excited you're coming.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And so I'd love for you to just tell our listeners a little bit about your story and your why behind what you're doing and how you kind of entered this sphere of nonprofit work.
Yeah. I actually didn't start out doing nonprofit work at all. I was an interior designer running my own business, an entrepreneur in a different fashion, I guess. And we had the opportunity to go on a mission trip to South Sudan back in 2007, and it was just a couple years after the peace agreement had been signed that had ended two back-to-back civil wars that had resulted in over 4 million people displaced and over 2 million people killed as a result of just this conflict. And so we landed in South Sudan shortly after this and had the opportunity to work with a local church there and minister there. But I think what was most significant on that trip is as we were working alongside the church, we just saw such physical need. We saw that these families that had been displaced by the war were repatriating back with a tarp and a sack of grain and being bussed into where they used to live and just being left to start their lives over. And that just felt so overwhelming to see. And I mean, incredibly overwhelming to live out as these South Sudanese, as these refugees repatriating. And so I think we just started to pray differently about what we might be able to do to serve the people there. And one of the cool things that happened on our trip was the women that we were serving alongside pulled the girls on the trip aside, and through a translator, they made a request for a sewing machine. What that represented to them was hope and opportunity. And what they presented was, we'd love to have a sewing machine so that we could start a business to make clothes to sell in the market. We can put our kids in school, and we can educate one of the women in our church so we could have even a women's ministry and use it as an opportunity to serve others. And I think that the Lord used that moment for me of, I'm not asking you to change the world. I'm just asking you to love and invest in one person. And so from that just interaction with those women, the seed, I guess, for Seed Effect was planted. The idea that, what if the sewing machine or what that sewing machine represents, a business that somebody could invest in to be the ones to provide for their family, to have that hope, to have that opportunity to change the course of their future. And so anyway, I ended up coming back and quitting my design job, and we launched Seed Effect shortly after that. And so have been doing that now really officially since 2009.
So I love the sewing machine story, that it was just a sewing machine that birthed this whole thing, a request for a sewing machine. So what exactly does Seed Effect facilitate?
Yeah, well, Seed Effect is a microfinance organization. We provide small business loans alongside saving services, ongoing education, and we use this as an opportunity to share the gospel. So we are Christ-centered in our program. What that means is that we basically come alongside these families who are struggling to put food on the table, put their kids in school, provide basic needs. And we come alongside and provide a loan. We provide that education. We provide a hand up and not a handout. We give them the empowerment that they need to start these businesses, to be successful, and to provide for their families. So it's really about hope and empowerment and dignity.
And tell me a little bit more about the philosophy behind the microloan initiative that some organizations are establishing, as opposed to, like you said, a handout, just giving money and giving food and giving resources to communities. Talk a little bit about the difference in
Sure.
the training and the education and the loan program, how that affects an economy differently.
Yeah, so really there's kind of 2 points there. First is when I mentioned the hand up and not a handout, we are giving a loan with the expectation that it is invested in, as we say, income generating activities. That means something that will generate an income. It's when there is a situation of need, it's not that it's bad to buy food or to buy medical supplies or what have you, but what that doesn't do is perpetuate the ability to provide. And so by us really requiring that these loans get invested in income generating activities, we're providing empowerment. We're basically taking this entrepreneur from the place of, us meeting a need for them and them being able to meet that need. And so, like I said, we are empowering them through that. And then I think the other thing that's important here is, there are a lot of microfinance organizations around the world, but you can't compare apples to apples. Some of them are very much set up like just a standard bank, except for lending at smaller amounts to more impoverished individuals. And so, they just give a loan and expect it to get repaid, and that's it. Whereas Christ-centered organizations, and especially those of us that really focus on education, are looking at it from a much more holistic perspective. We're not just giving a loan. We're providing really support all around that. We are providing initial training. We're providing ongoing training through monthly education seminars. We are almost acting as sort of life coaches in a way, relationship managers, if you will, for our clients. Being there to pray with them and pray for them, sharing Christ with them, being fully invested in their growth and their success, as opposed to just wanting to see the loan repaid. It's so much more about them and their success and growth, I guess. And so that's really where Seed Effect falls, and that's the heart behind what we do, is an opportunity to share Christ and to come alongside them as they grow and as they see their lives transformed through that. So,
and I think that's one of the things I get so excited about regarding the Well Studio's involvement with Seed Effect, is because that's really what we're about as a community here in the United States with the Well Studio, and with all the women that we encourage, empower, equip, and support. And it's this whole idea of bringing faith and entrepreneurship together and making God a part of, I think for a lot of women for so long, they might have separated their business and their faith and just operated them separately and forgot that, or didn't realize maybe, that God cares about the details of how you run your business, your customers, your interaction with the vendors that you might work with. And so I love that as a whole, that Seed Effect is that for these women over there, that they are a whole life accountability, support, education for these women so that they can fully be successful, not just in business, but in all aspects of their life. I love that part about it.
Yeah, it's by far, our program is led by all South Sudanese in South Sudan. They are the ones serving their people. And really, when you get the opportunity to meet our staff, when you see them serving their people, you see it as it's out of such a heart of just glorifying and honoring to the Lord and wanting to provide so much more than just a job for the clients that we serve and for their people, but they want to see their lives transformed. They want to see this cycle of poverty broken for the next generation. They want to see their country pulled out of this conflict and poverty. They want to see all this just transformation and life change take place and happen. And so for them, it really is about so much more than just a loan.
And I like how you mentioned before you felt so overwhelmed, like with the need
Mm-hmm.
that you saw there. But you took one sewing machine and the whole seed imagery, you took a sewing machine and have built this. And so it encourages me personally that when I do feel overwhelmed by not being able to make a difference or feel like my little gift, and it's biblical. I mean, God talks about it in scripture that he will take our little and make it a lot. And I think that's what's so encouraging about your story. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit I'm going to ask the question. I've asked it, it's been asked of you before. Why South Sudan of all?
Mm-hmm.
I know it's beyond just a coincidence that happened to be where you traveled at that point in your life. It has now become so important. So answer that question for us. Why South Sudan?
Yeah. Man, South Sudan is a unique place. It's a place that was birthed out of conflict, and a place that has again returned to conflict. It's sort of a place where um, I don't know how to say it. Nobody really wants to work, not because they don't care about the people, but because it's really hard to work there. It is, you're talking about a place that has very little infrastructure. In an area the size of Texas, there are just a couple hundred miles of paved roads. Um, in both the towns that we work in, one of them has no paved roads, and well, actually, we're in three towns now. Another one has just one. And you have very little access to just services. There's no electrical grid, there's no running water. And so it's as like impoverished as it is and underdeveloped, it's actually really expensive to work there. So it can be difficult. Um, it's also the challenges of working in a conflict area, I think make this even that much harder. And so I think honestly, the reason why my husband and I were called into this is because we didn't have at the time a big operating board that said, it's too expensive to go there, you can't, or we shouldn't. We just had the Lord calling us, and with this clear calling of, hey, there's this opportunity here, I can use you if you say yes. And we had no reason to say no. I mean, it was like, okay, Lord, we don't know what we're doing as we start this out, but you do, and you'll bring the right people around it. And as we say yes to each step, we trust, as hard as this will be, that you will bring yourself glory in that, and that you will bring this to the place where you want it to be. And so I think really the way we looked at it was that this is such a blessing. I mean, I think there is that struggle, and we have dealt with that along the way so often of we define success so differently than I think the Lord does. Sometimes, we look at these metrics and how quickly do we grow, and how many people have I reached, and how big is my, business or nonprofit. And the reality is the Lord's not looking for any of those things. He's just looking for us to be faithful to what he's called us to. And he's the one that does the work, and he's the one that therefore gets the glory. And so I think the reason South Sudan is maybe honestly because we weren't all that equipped to be there. Therefore, the Lord got the glory when he grows a program that starts from nothing to over 1,600 clients in now 3 different cities, that is empowered not only clients, but our staff. We have almost 35 staff that run this program who didn't have, they didn't do this before. But this is a way for them to live out their faith as well. And so, I think it has so much to do with just the blessing that I get from being able to be a part of his work. And I think South Sudan is unique in that because it wasn't saturated. There weren't that many microfinance organizations there, and there still aren't. And so there was such a need, and we didn't have any barriers to entry. We could go in and we could be his hands and feet. So,
because something you guys said in one of our meetings a couple weeks ago was, one of our team members shared that we're like the special forces going in. And I loved this analogy, but my heart was also broken because you explained that these women are watching organizations leave South Sudan because, like you said, it's too expensive. There's conflict. It's just too difficult. There are easier countries and easier communities to go into and help and see an immediate return on their investment. And so we're walking into kind of this space where maybe these women are discouraged. They're dealing already with inflation and difficulty in running their businesses that they haven't maybe experienced a year before. But now they're dealing with just maybe some discouragement and hopelessness and watching organizations that were there to help them before leave because, like you said, it's too expensive.
Yeah, or even the safety factor. I mean, that's kind of one of another unique thing about Seed Effect is that, our staff being South Sudanese, they, instead of having expats or, Americans or Europeans running the program, if conflict arises, they're there. They're the ones that live there. If it gets difficult, they're there. You're not talking about organizations leaving for those various reasons too. But I think, we have such a unique opportunity right now to be an encouragement in the midst of a really difficult time. We just got an email this morning that I think we shared with the trip team, but from our staff, titled Happy Independence Day, South Sudan. Let's see, back in 2011, on July 9th, the South seceded from the North, and it was this huge day of celebration. But that, I think, for those of us looking in, that feels so clouded with the current conflict that's going on. But yet this email that we got from our staff was just about celebrating all of it, the good, the bad, the hard, celebrating, the hard in that it helps us to remember the hand of God and, trusting and believing and hoping that he's going to turn the mourning into joy, and even celebrating those who have fought and struggled and even died for the freedom and liberation of the people of South Sudan, even in years to come. And I think it's a place that has been so oppressed, and yet within that there's so much hope and opportunity, at just the human level. And so we get a chance to be a part of that and to be his hands and feet as he's bringing that hope in the midst of really hard circumstances.
Yeah, and I like, so when we're in Africa, when we're in South Sudan in August, there is a day called Seed Effect Day, and you will have us, the team, kind of run that day, and it's a day of encouragement and education for all of the clients there in the area. And we'll be teaching 2 lessons. One will be growing your business during difficult times, and then the other one will be stewarding your business during difficult times. And I'm so excited about it. One, I will be completely honest. When I heard you say that, I was so intimidated because I thought, what do I kind of know how to run a business in America, but I have nothing to share with these people in South Sudan. I don't understand their lives. I can't relate. I thought they run different businesses than I do. And so there was this level of intimidation that I didn't have anything to share. And then you shared that we would be so surprised at how much we actually do have in common with them and their struggles. And then the other thing you mentioned that was it makes complete sense, but I guess it was eye-opening in a way, was We have so much access to information here online. I mean, you can Google anything. And so we have information that they cannot access over there that would be applicable to their struggles or running a business there. And it was basically you just saying, just deliver the information to them because they can't get to it. And so it was just an interesting moment of feeling intimidated by not feeling like I had anything to share. And then realizing, gosh, we are so fortunate, not only just to have the information at our fingertips that we do, but to just be able to dream the freedom we have to dream of big things for our lives.
Yeah, I think so much of just our role and our involvement with Seed Effect and with the people of South Sudan is a lot about empowerment and access. And they don't need us to come and fix their problems. They need somebody to hear them, to be a voice for them, and to provide just that access, the access to the funds, the access to the information, to the education, to the encouragement even. And I think that's a unique role that we get to play. And I think it's also one that we often overlook as being important. As Americans, we tend to want to fix or build or solve or, what have you. But really, the need is especially when you're talking about dignity and seeing somebody as capable and being able to come alongside them. It changes what you bring to them. You're not there to fix their problems. You're there to hear them. You're there to show you care. You're there to listen. You're there to be a voice. You're there to, provide the resources so that they can be the ones. And I think that's an important distinction, and it's an important role. So
you have this mission and you have this nonprofit organization. Talk a little bit about, because I know we can all relate, just this challenge with trying to communicate your passion, your mission, gathering a community around it when maybe people, aren't sharing the same passion and burden that you have for like this specific concept or this specific need in South Sudan. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, man, this is hard, and it's also an opportunity. I think for us, we launched the organization back in 2009, and with that came our first fundraiser that was just a bunch of our friends sitting around a room. I don't think we ever thought that we'd be able to even start the organization with that, but the Lord provided exactly what was needed. And I think through that, over the past almost 6 years, I think I've run this balance between what I think the organization needs and really what the Lord has brought before us and the way the Lord has grown the organization. So I struggle so much with this feeling so passionate for this cause and for the South Sudanese and for both the need and the opportunity here, and struggling with feeling like sometimes that falls flat in communication a little bit of, everybody has a different passion or a different cause, and just trying to connect others with that. And I think for me, so much of that, what started out with frustration has really landed in a place of, the only thing I am called to do is be a voice for this, to be a voice for what I care about, for what I find passionate, or what I am passionate about. And the Lord is the one that moves and transforms. And so I think that reminder is really, really helpful for me that, as I show up and as I share and as we network and as we get the word out there, that we aren't responsible for the outcome. I can't force somebody to get it or to care, but I can share about it and I can be passionate about it and I can continue to be that voice and to be that voice. And I think what's pretty amazing along the way is the Lord, at least for Seed Effect, there's never been a time when he didn't provide what was needed for his mission and for his ministry. There were definitely times along the way where in our human struggles and feeling that frustration of like, gosh, this is just hard and tiresome. But yet every time the Lord has provided, he has led and he has provided. And so I think, I sit alongside everybody else in battling the it just as we were talking about earlier, Jen, but the demand for everybody's time. I mean, just even realizing I'm working on these emails, and the chances are most people aren't going to read them. I mean, they've got too many emails coming to their inbox. We're working on these, getting up social media stuff, and knowing that might resonate with a couple people, and the most of them aren't going to see it because of the algorithms. And so I think there's that temptation to feel overwhelmed or even frustrated with just that your voice doesn't matter, that nobody's hearing you. But then the fruit would prove otherwise, and then we see, we've got an advisory council of 25 people who do care and are using their network. We've got just a handful of individuals that are incredible connectors for us, that have just really grasped the mission and have connected us with different foundations and, different connections that, are the people that either have the money or the resources to push the organization forward. And, and so I think within that, the lesson for me is just sort of the power of small, that I think we think it takes thousands and thousands and thousands of followers or thousands of people. And maybe for some that's the story, but for others, it maybe takes a few that grasp it, that get it, that listen. And, the only part that we really can control is the way we use our voice. And so I think that's been a lesson I am learning and have been learning over the last few years. And it's definitely been kind of where our struggle has felt, of when you care so passionately about something.
Well, and you couldn't have said it better, because this is honestly one of our core messages for our community, is that we need to focus and value obedience over outcome. And you said it. I wrote a post about it. You basically said word for word the heart of that post, because I was sensing that so many dreamers and entrepreneurs are struggling with that, are struggling with the numbers and this feeling that to be successful, we've got to be big. And yet so many foundational moments for people who are dreamers or entrepreneurs, they responded in obedience to what the Lord called them to, burdened them with, and gifted them for. And yet somewhere along the journey, we lose sight of the obedience and we focus more on the outcome. And that is truly God's decision. And I love that you talked about it earlier too, that He chooses what will bring glory to Him, because ultimately that is what we are here to do. And I'm just so thankful that you've just reiterated that and reminded us of that, and that it is obedience over outcome is what we need to daily give back to the Lord, daily give our businesses back to the Lord, our passions, our what we are burdened for, because He will decide the outcome. So I'm just so thankful that you are sharing that and reiterating that for all our listeners, because we need to be reminded of it all the time.
Me too.
Well, I'd love for you to share a little bit about how, if there is a listener that's just really excited and connecting with the mission of Seed Effect, how can they get more involved?
Oh, yes. On the heels of the passion talk. So we have a number of ways to get involved. Obviously there is joining our support team. We give loans, those are monetary loans. And so being able to give financially, we've had some individuals who have small businesses and they give a percentage of their sales in certain seasons or run promotions, things like that. That's an entrepreneur helping an entrepreneur is a really cool way to connect on such an individual level. And so just by supporting financially and even creatively in that is a huge help. Prayer for our work and for our clients and for the South Sudanese and just what's going on there. Following us on Facebook and Instagram, we tend to post a lot of those prayer requests in those outlets. And so just committing to that, being able to pray with us. And then the other would be to join us in being an advocate and a voice, whether that is through, getting a network of your friends together and, like I said, getting the word out through your business, or we do fun small parties or happy hours sometimes, even hosting one of those, or coming to our event and being a volunteer. We have a big event in November with about 400 people and being a sponsor or a volunteer or even a host committee member of that. And so, really kind of those key ways, I think, just financially, prayer, and then being a voice and an advocate, writing about it, blogging about it, helping us to expand our network and connect with those that might not otherwise know about Seed Effect is a huge way to support the ministry.
Yeah, and I'm excited because over the next couple months, as we travel together over to South Sudan, and I'm boots on the ground and experiencing that over there, I'm excited about how the Well Studio can be more involved and kind of develop a strategy around that, because I know that there are some women in our community that would just be so excited to be an entrepreneur, supporting an entrepreneur. So if you're listening and want to pray about that too, and how that gets fleshed out, we would love that. But we will include the links to all these things in the blog post and in the information below this podcast. But thank you so much, Missy, for just really being an encouragement to our listeners. And we're all in this. We're all trying to just be obedient where God's called us. And you are doing that well. And so we just thank you for being an example of that.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks so much, Jen.
Thank you for listening to our Swell session. For more information about Seed Effect, visit seedeffect.org. To connect with us over at the Well Studio, please visit thewellstudio.co. Until next time, have a swell day.